Welcome to the Social Media Church podcast. I'm Neil Smith, joined by a new friend, Nathan James. Nathan, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Hey, Nils, thanks for having me. Really excited to be here today.
Good. Well, Nathan is a part of Ministry Brands, and if you have been in the church technology space at any point, say church communication space, you're probably familiar with Ministry Brands. They have been around for many, many years. And in many ways, I feel like have been somewhat faceless. I've often never known who's behind Ministry Brands, who are the people behind Ministry Brands, because they've got a lot of companies and a lot of software technologies that we use. And so when I heard about Nathan and had the opportunity to have him on this podcast, I jumped at the opportunity because I'm eager to learn about Ministry Brands, the background. But Nathan, before we jump into Ministry Brands, tell us about you. Who are you? What's your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a church guy. Okay. So I went to Liberty University, got a degree in ministry, but was always a bit of a technologist at heart. Taught myself to code at a young age, worked with the Department of Defense and Homeland Security, kind of in that consulting world for a little while. And so coming out of Liberty University with the ministry degree, I got hired at my first full-time ministry job as a youth pastor because they said, oh, cool, you can build our website. Right. Yep. And so I did that. I have had the pleasure of working in 7 churches, either full-time or part-time, everything from your small country Bible church all the way up to Seacoast Church, 15 campuses all the way up and down South Carolina and bleeding into North Carolina a bit. So I've been in the ministry space. I'm a PK. So I grew up in the church space. My father was an executive pastor, et cetera. So that's my passion. I mentioned a little bit that I'm a technologist. And so after working in the church space for a bit, started kind of freelancing and getting back out into working in technology, specifically SaaS-based technology, fintech, and mobile. And so I want to say it was 2015, 16, had an opportunity to join a ministry technology company. And it was just this like light bulb moment where I said, look, it's that intersection between passion and talent, and I can kind of bring those two together. So it wasn't Ministry Brands that I joined at that point. It was another software provider, got into the space, was able to work with them for a while, moved on from there to a large fintech, international kind of group. And then just about a year ago, I got a call from somebody that said, hey, have you ever heard of Ministry Brands? And to be honest, I wasn't looking at going anywhere, but I knew Ministry Brands. I knew them by reputation. I'd met many of the people at conferences in some of my past lives. I knew, many of the brands, right? Fellowship One and Shelby. I mean, my dad used to use Shelby when I was a little kid running around the office back in Texas, actually, at some churches out there near the seminary. And so I said, I know that company well. I've actually helped implement a lot of their software solutions like Fellowship or Clover or EasyTide, things like that over the years. And so I said, well, it's at least worth a conversation. And I think, Nils, you had mentioned Ministry Brands reputation, right? Yeah. And so, I especially having worked in the space, knew their reputation as well. And so I went in a little bit of skepticism and said, all right, well, let me at least hear these guys out and hear what's going on. And that's right. And listen, I'm like taking your thunder and just telling the whole story. I get so excited about it.
Go for it. So let's keep going.
Okay. Yeah. So when we sat down and started talking to them, kind of what we learned was that a new leadership team had kind of been brought into place by our new CEO, Pat O'Donnell. And he was brought in about 2 years ago to kind of shake things up a little bit, to re-envision where the organization needed to go, and to kind of lead us through a transition of ownership. And so January of last year, we transitioned ownership to a group that is a little bit more focused on what we want to be focused on, which is that kind of about leadership, kind of church leadership, church partnership, et cetera. Since that time, when we brought in the new ownership, the entire leadership team has transitioned out, and we brought in new leadership on one of those who all really have this heart and passion for Christ, this heart and passion for ministry. And our goal is, and you mentioned it earlier, amplify. We'll talk about that in a second. Yeah. But our goal over the past 12 months has been, hey, there's this amazing thing that's been created, right? This conglomeration of a bunch of the best brands historically over the last 40 years. How do we take this and now turn it into what's next for the church from a technology perspective? So that's why I'm here. That's why I'm passionate about what I do, because
Yeah.
every day I get to help churches.
Oh, I love it. I love it. When I can't wait to hear what we're talking about, what's next for churches, because there's a lot of different opinions as to what should be next, what will be next, and where a lot of this is going. I love hearing your heart and your background too around the church. And I think one of the things that has often been missing is church people it's technology people serving church people have
Yeah.
often not understood. The church is a unique organization, and the functions of the church is unique. And I think there's often been a misalignment when it comes to technology and the mission of the church. But I think when you can pair the two, of technology at the end of the day is agnostic, but it provides, it's a resource for churches to better accomplish their mission, better accomplish their goals. So talk about what Ministry Brands is. A conglomerate of brands, and so there's a lot of different technologies involved in what Ministry Brands is. So can you talk about what all is under the scope of Ministry Brands?
Yeah, so it's pretty wide. Okay, so we over the past couple of decades have brought together 52 different companies,
Wow.
and figured out how to combine a lot of the best in class technologies together. Today, we're running at right around 28 individual technology platforms or products that we sell to the market. Everything from, like I said, Simple Church to Fellowship One to Shelby to
Yep.
Easy Tide to Higher Ground Solutions, which is a texting kind of email solution to background checks. We have
Yeah.
a whole slew of background check providers, et cetera. And so we brought all those together, and historically, kind of the strategy was, how do we bring the best and the best together and learn from each
Yeah.
other, which was a good
Yeah.
strategy. It got us here, but it's not going to get us where we want to go. And
Yeah.
so, Ministry Brands historically has been known, exactly as you said, as a kind of a conglomeration of a bunch of different companies and brands. That's
Yep.
no longer the case. As of now, as of January 15th, we've launched the first step in our new vision mission, which is this Ministry Brands Amplify. For anybody who knew Ministry Brands historically, knows that we were green. Our logo had this kind of leafy characteristic in it.
Yep.
All that's changed. We've launched a new visual identity. We've kind of established and centered in on our mission as a company, which is really to help our 750 employees, who are all very passionate about serving the local church, help them make their passion actionable by helping build software and technology tools to empower purpose-driven organizations. And yes, that does go beyond churches, because we help a lot of nonprofits as well. We are really focusing on the faith-based organizations that are trying to do good across the nation. And so where do we go from here, right? In Amplify, we've brought together a couple. It's the first step. A couple of our products, specifically our CHMSs, our giving and our mobile apps together are now in Amplify as an all-in-one solution. Within the next 45 days, we're going to be launching, and I want to talk about this, so bring me back to this. We're going to be launching the best website solution that anybody has ever seen inside of the church industry or outside of the church industry. We'll talk about that. We're going to be launching that. We're going to be launching streaming into the Amplify platform. We're going to be launching a brand new rebuilt content marketplace with new search technology into the content marketplace. And then over the next 24 months, we're going to be bringing all 28 of our brands into this one all-in-one church management solution. And then there's more, right? So that's the first step is, hey, let's not be a series of brands. Let's be one big thing. And then while we're doing that, let's focus on innovation. Let's focus on building what's next for the church to fill the needs that nobody's meeting today. So we dive into some of that as well.
So yeah, there's a lot of things there. So one of the just points of confusion has been, why are there multiple, like, should we choose Shelby or F1, or should we, and so what I'm hearing is it's basically going to just be one thing. There's just Amplify. And can you kind of pick and choose, like, say you use Resi for live streaming, can you still use that? Or is it like you've got to use all things Amplify as you move into this ecosystem? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. So one, this isn't a new strategy. It is the finalization of the strategy. But for the
Yeah.
last several years, Ministry Brands has been migrating a lot of their legacy platforms into more modern platforms, just under different names. And
Yep.
so some of the time in some of our brands, the most modern platforms are actually the same code base, just under different names.
Uh-huh.
And so as we're bringing them into Amplify, there's no transition for our customers. There's no jarring, hey, it's a new system. It looks different. It works different. It's actually the same systems that they know and love with better integration, single sign-on, single user management, cross-module analytics, things like that. The things that
Yes.
really make it work well. But we're just bringing those, together,
Well,
right? But yeah, we have as a company actually just got off a call 30 minutes ago with our CTO talking about this very specific strategy. We as a company have made a strategic call not to be a closed environment, right? If you think about it in the tech world, you have
yeah.
Apple, which is a little bit of a
Yes.
closed environment. You got to have everything
Yes.
Apple, or Google, which is
Yes.
a little bit like we
Yes.
play nicely with everybody. We
Yes.
have made a strategic decision to play nicely with everybody. Okay, so yes,
It's
the
great.
the, the plan is to open up our APIs to continue to work. We have a lot of those integrations today, but we want to keep investing in those, right? Bring Resi if you want, bring PushPay if you want, bring some
Yeah.
of these others with you. That's fine. We have some really unique solutions that are best in class, not only best in suite, but truly best in class. And we're building more that are going to be
Uh,
truly unique in the industry. And so, yeah, if you want to use us for what we're great at and use somebody else because you're already there, that's fine. I'll tell you all day long, I think ours are better, but hey, that's my job. But yeah, we
yes.
want to play nicely because at the end of the day, it's not about ministry brands, or at least it shouldn't
Uh,
be. It should really be about the big C church, and that's
yes.
the vision that we want to pursue.
Yeah, I love that. I think, I mean, just being a technology guy and being in that ministry space, as I've seen, and I think a lot of your competitors have created closed environments that you kind of have to use all their products, or it creates complexities because they don't play well with others. And I still remember, and I dealt with this issue in before Fellowship One was with ministry brands, but I remember it didn't play nice with others,
Yeah,
and with some of our technology systems, and it was really frustrating because we had to create all these workarounds and kind of because it just wasn't going to integrate seamlessly. And so I love that you're approaching it to give freedom and really give control to churches with that, and I think naturally your own products are going to integrate most naturally. But when you can, and I see this a lot in database systems of like, there's points where like MailChimp just works better than whatever email system is built into a lot of the systems. And so if you can
yeah,
integrate those tools, it can be a good thing. And you have options. I think one of the keys that I think that I love for churches to have are options. I want to hear, there's so many questions I want to hear. Because I'm curious about the website offering that you're moving
yeah,
into, and what a content marketplace is. But let's talk about innovation. Let's talk about philosophical strategy, and what Ministry Brands is not known for, from my experience, is innovation. They're known for acquisition.
yeah.
And so I would love to hear how is Ministry Brands, how are you prioritizing innovation into the future, and what's that process internally?
Yeah, it's a really solid question. And just that's my heartbeat. Whether it's good or bad, sometimes I go too far, but I'm an
Yes.
innovation guy. That's what I love. And when they brought me in, that was one of the things that I really wanted to make sure that I vetted out before
Yeah.
I decided to join Ministry Brands. Was what's your appetite for innovation? And our new leadership, our CEO, his theory is, hey, we need to be innovating all of the time. We keep metrics just like any business to say, hey, how much are we, innovating, and how much are we doing? Keep the lights on work, or tech debt. And for the last 3 quarters, we've been leveraged up between 75 and 80% of every hour that we put in across our large R&D group has been on brand new innovative features, etc. That is a huge shift from where Ministry Brands has been historically. You asked a question of what does that look like on the inside. So let me
Yes.
just pull back the curtain and explain. Okay. In the world of Ministry Brands, where everything was its own brand, every
Uh-huh.
brand had its own R&D team. They had its own product manager. Some of them had
Yep.
designers, and they all operated individually. when I got here, had the opportunity to bring them all together and say, we're going to be one team now. And it was amazing to see people, and I'm not, specifically the products team, we brought them together and we had people say, hey guys, I haven't met most of you before. I've been here 3, 4, 5 years. It's nice to meet you. And it's just because we're a large organization and everybody's kind of working in their own area. As of last April, we have unified the product team. We've unified the R&D team. We now have 20 teams that are working as one group versus a bunch of disparate groups. And we are highly focused and in tune on figuring out what is going to move the needle for churches and how are we going to innovate and bring new things to the market. And a lot of that started with the mindset shift, right? You use the term church database. I want to lean in on that for a second.
Yes.
Church databases, man, they've been around 40 years, going on 50 years now. They started back with DOS, okay? Like a long time ago. How do we just keep a Rolodex of people? Today, there are still a lot of systems that are just a list of people. The challenge that we've laid out for our team is to say, let's reimagine what a CHMS, a church management system is. Let's go beyond the idea of a list of people. And what if all of these technologies that all of these providers provide put together, that's the new CHMS. So what if your website was actually part of your CHMS and your streaming was part of your CHMS and your giving was part of your CHMS and your kids' curriculum was part of your CHMS? What about your worship videos that you're recording for tutorials? What if those were part of your CHMS? What if this holistic church management system was kind of the new CHMS? And that's what we're envisioning with the new product that we launched in January called Amplify. So it's not about just saying, let's take different systems and put them together with some sort of like single sign-on, right? Instead, it's about how do we re-architect these systems so they come together as one product, one system that fully integrates, fully works. Yeah, we're going to play nice with outsiders and other systems, no doubt. But inside of our ecosystem, the CHMS is no longer a database. It's now all of the tools that our churches use to do ministry.
I love it. Well, let's talk about, and one of the things I saw in the Amplify is that a priority of mobile. So let's, from an innovation standpoint, what do you see? And there's the debate in the church space of mobile to app or not to app. It's kind of the question of like, should churches have apps? Should they not have apps? What's Ministry Brand's approach to apps?
Yeah, so the future's in mobile. Okay, so let me start by putting a flag in the ground. Okay, the future's in mobile. Everybody likes to use their mobile devices. There's no doubt about it. We have lots of data on the back end on our systems. We have 90,000 churches using our systems, so we get lots of data. We also do a lot of market research, and so from our data perspective, we see that 45% of church admins are accessing our systems through mobile devices. So yeah, we need to make sure that all of our systems are mobile friendly for our staff, or what we like to call church ops, right? Our church operations group, the people that are needing to get in and see people, find profiles, set up events, schedule volunteers, all of that stuff. So yeah, there's a mobile piece there that we're working on. Just like we have a Amplify on the desktop, we have an Amplify mobile. That's all of your church ops functionality. There's another side of mobile, though, which is the congregant side of mobile, which is really interesting, right? And I think that's maybe where you were leaning in on. We got market data the other day that said for mid-level givers, okay, donors across the United States that would be classified as mid-level, that's above like $1,500 a year in donations, that 57% of those prefer to donate online through a website. And only 16% prefer to donate through the app. And obviously, as you get up in age, the numbers drop when it comes to the app. But even today, yes, people want to be able to give in a plate or at the church, but a lot of people want to go to the website and easily click it. But very few people have said, hey, I'm going to convert to an actual mobile application that's going to become my primary use of giving. And here's the reason why. We've done some research on this. We looked into it, and there's one of my product managers made this statement to me that just kind of stuck. He said, my church has an app. This is one of my product managers, okay? He said, my church has an app, and I didn't download it because it's not useful. And that's the thing that I would ask churches, is I would say, when was the last time that your congregants visited your website? When is the last time that your congregants downloaded an app or visited it? And the answer is, when you're looking for a church, you look at the websites. When you're
Yeah.
first showing up at a church, you download the app. But if there's not relevant ministry content pushed in real time and updated all the time, then it becomes less
Yep.
valuable and people don't use it. So
Yes.
I don't think that 16% is because they don't like apps. Of course, they have mobile
Yes.
phones, probably smartphones, they're using it. I just think
Yep.
as church industry, we have not necessarily figured out how to provide value to customers in that. So I'm going to take that opportunity to segue over into the website piece, if you don't mind for just a second.
Yeah, please.
So we have a code name. Okay, I'll let you, again, pull back the curtain for you. We have a code name. We call it Project Mando. What it means is many applications narrowed down into one. Okay. And it's this idea of what if we have a bunch of website solutions. We have Clover, we have Ecclesia 365, we have ShareFaith websites, we have others. And with that, what's the most valuable thing in all of those? And the answer is not the website. You can go anywhere to get a website. The answer is making those websites valuable, just like the mobile, right? How do we push your events in real time? How do we get all of your giving syncing in real time? How do we push your sermons in real time? How do we do these things that provide real-time ministry content to your congregants so that it makes it valuable enough that they want to go? And then we can talk about, okay, great, now that they're there, we can engage them in other ways. Cool.
Yep.
But it starts with making those items not static, but live and updated in real time without extra effort. Instead of logging into Squarespace and having to add an event, what if when you added it in worshipplanning.com or in your CHMS, it automatically appears there, right? That's what we've been building. That's what's rolling out in kind of the next 45 days. And then right after we launch it on some of the websites, we're tying some of that functionality into the mobile as well. Some of it's there, and we're going to be continuing to expand that by building that on top of our Mando platform. And that's going to basically be our content distribution network so that all of our systems continuously receive this feed of real-time ministry content that's generated through your other systems. Now, here's the interesting piece on the websites. And this is why I was telling you, it's going to be the best in class, okay? We had some options when we said, let's not have a bazillion websites. Instead, we said, what if we kept those options, but we made them one option? So imagine this. Imagine we've kind of chosen our three biggest platforms. We've chosen Clover sites, we've chosen ShareFaith websites, which is a WordPress-based platform, and we've chosen our Ecclesia or E360 sites, which is a little bit more on the custom side. We said, what if we still allowed all three of those options, a little bit more like a Wix option, a WordPress option, and a custom option? And as a user in Amplify, what if you could just say, I want a website, and then you could have any of the three, or you could have multiple ones. Or you could pay for an E360 custom website for your church, and then your youth pastor could say, but I want a cool website too, and they want to do it on WordPress. And then your children's pastor says, well, hey, I want one, and I just want drag and drop like Wix, and they can use the Clover platform. So we've tied all of that together. We've built it on top of this Mando platform, so all of the content flows into those, can be filtered or distributed however you want it, but you have the option to have as many websites as you want and to migrate from one website to the next, based on the maturity of your church, based on the maturity of your technical capabilities and skill sets. But all of the valuable stuff, your content, continues to stream to all of those in real time. So that's what we're trying to build, trying to make it unique and trying to make it valuable.
Yeah. Interesting. There, I gotta just say, and I've got so many questions I still would ask, but one of the things, it is so inspiring to me to hear you just and your excitement for how you're going to serve the church, because I do think that a lot of people have had negative experiences with ministry brands through the years or negative perceptions, and me being one of them, and I think even being one of them, as you shared so transparently, and to hear that desire for innovation, and I think even you're showing like, we're not just talking about innovation. This is actually how we're applying it to these products in this way. And I think at the end of the day, what happens is, and we've had, Tidely and PushPay and Secure Give and, others on this podcast. And I think at the end of the day, like, it's good that there are lots of people serving the church. And what is possible today is that churches have good options. And I think ministry brands, and what's clear to me in this conversation is that you're providing a really excellent option that isn't going to be stale, but that is going to continue to improve and get better. So I love that. And so I wanted to pause and just, compliment you on the work that you're doing and the approach that you're taking. So I think understanding even how all of this fits together, there's two questions that I have. One, because this is a social media church podcast, how does Ministry Brands, and maybe even you personally, how do you see social media fitting into a church's strategy, and does it integrate at all with their database systems, or what technology should overlap? Because a lot of times what we talk about is kind of, or what, I run, and I love the name Amplify. I run a social media marketing agency called Amplify Social Media. And so we have a name in common, but I think practically it's your rented audience on social media versus your owned audience, with your database. But how do you approach that? And what, is there any kind of integration with social, with the Ministry Brands kind of technology infrastructure?
Now you get me excited. All right, so let's talk about this. So one of the things that we did when I first got here is we took a huge step back, right? And we said, let's understand, versus just saying, hey, here's a cool new technology, what's possible. And that's part of our job. But we took a huge step back and said, let's understand the personas and really break apart the needs of the church. Let's figure out where we're winning and where we're not, so that way we know where to go, right? To kind of break that down and explain it in a short period of time. This was multiple weeks of whiteboarding sessions and strategy sessions, but to break it down, essentially we think of it like this. We did a lot of research on churches and kind of built out this whole table that shows that 98% of churches have less than 1,000 congregants, right? It's only 2% of churches that have over 1,000 congregants. Now, that 2% has 24% of the total congregants in the United States. Okay, so disproportionate. Lots of people go to the big ones, not as many on the smaller ones, but still the majority of churches are under that 1,000, kind of what we call TWA, or typical weekly attendance, right? So then we said, okay, so let's map this out a little bit. Let's understand what the people are, the staff members of the church at the different sizes. Okay, and it obviously always starts with a senior pastor, and then I love to tell this story because I'm a bit of a worship guy myself. So starts with the senior pastor, and then he says, hey, I need a cool guy to bring in more people. So the next hire is the worship guy, right? And then they quickly realize, hey, we're not organized. So they hire a secretary or an administrative assistant, right? And then they say, hey, we need younger families. So then you hire a children's pastor. And then they say, well, now we need that next group of families. So you hire a youth pastor. And then suddenly this group of people look around and say, hey, we don't have a lot of business experience in our staff. So that's when you hire an executive pastor, an administrative pastor, a true like business admin, right? From there on, it gets into more of the associate pastor roles, or the technical roles, like a creative director, or a graphic designer, or whatever, right? But that first grouping of people, when we look at those, and we look at those as users, and the users like what they need, we started mapping all of our products to those users, and we realized that most of our products, and not just at Ministry Brands, but across the technology industry, is targeted at what I call church ops, which is that business professional who comes in and says, hey, let's organize church a little bit, more from a professional perspective. Sure, everybody uses this piece or that piece, but that's really where a lot of the software industry has gone, right? When you think giving, when you think database management or CHMSs, when you think a lot of that stuff, it's about church ops, okay? But every day, when a church staff member wakes up and goes into the office, what are they thinking about? They're not thinking about what they're doing that day or the church operations that need to happen that day. They're thinking about the service that's coming up, whether that's Saturday night or Sunday morning or Sunday night. They're thinking, how do I prepare for this next thing, right? And so what we started doing is we started breaking this use case down into 3 buckets. You have church ops, then you have pastoral staff, and then you have what I would call congregants, right? And these are members, right? You have these kind of 3 buckets. And we said, hey, how do we start strategically going after the needs of pastoral staff and the needs of congregants, not just the needs of kind of church ops, which we do really well today. Some of that's, worshipplanning.com. Some of that is live streaming. Some of that's websites, a piece of all that. But I still don't think that we had nailed it. So we sat down and said, okay, let's look at a traditional funnel. How do we get people into the church? And then how do we help them grow in their faith journey? Okay. And we looked at all the models. I mean, there are hundreds of them out there, right? There's the whole target where you're getting people into the core. There's the whole cross where you're moving them up and out. There's, the ladder methodology. There's all sorts of methodologies out there. But really what we nailed or leaned in on is they're all the same, which is somehow we need to tell people about our church, tell people in the community that we're here to serve them, that we're here to help them, that we're here to be the light in the darkness, right? So somehow we got to attract people and tell them about our message and how we want to serve and help them. And then once they do come in, then we got to engage with them, reward them, encourage them to come back a third time. And then through our data, we've learned that once somebody comes 3 times, now they're ready to get plugged in. So there's a whole slew of ways the pastoral staff wants to plug you in, whether that's giving or small group or Sunday school attendance, whether that's serving, whether that's a secondary event, whatever, there's those pieces. So then we took a step back and said, okay, now we understand the buying personas. Now we understand what they're trying to do, get people in and then help them grow in their faith. How do we build software that enables that? Okay. And I know, long way of telling a story to get back to your point, which is how do we leverage social media? But the reality is that churches are the largest content creator, in my opinion, in all of America. There's this whole trend about influencers out there today, right?
Yeah.
Hey, let's all become an influencer. And my 8-year-old told me the other day, Dad, I might want to become an influencer. And I said, that's a cool job opportunity. I didn't realize that was a thing when I was your age, but cool. But with that, way before influencers were a thing, churches were creating content. Churches are notoriously bad for recording, splicing, and then distributing that content in a way that is consumable, which is what social media does. So that's where we're headed. And without kind of revealing too much, and that hopefully shows some of the thinking behind it. But really what we're focused in on next is figuring out how do we build tools that help track member engagement or growth? How do we help people grow in their faith as connected to a body of believers? And then also, how do we help leverage the content churches are already creating and shoot it out through automation, through things like ChatGPT, through a single button clicks that aren't writing content for the pastors, that aren't auto-generating everything, but they are maybe auto-splicing the sermons that are already created, or the blog posts that are already written, or all of these things that are the worship songs that are written. How do we create tools that get that out into the community? And social media is the perfect mechanism for that. We just believe the church, especially in those smaller churches, the 98% that don't have a communications director may not be great at that. So why can't we help them get their message out to their community?
I love that. And I think that's foundationally. And it's social media is not a replacement for your church website or your database. It is a tool and it's a front door. And I think this is where I think this conversation is so important is we talk a lot about the front door through social media, but I think we need to move people into discipleship and into their deepest level of engagement with our churches. And a lot of that comes with knowing their name, knowing things about them so that we can follow up on their birthdays, on their anniversaries, on, certain key milestones. And that's the purpose of a lot of this technology to help move people deeper in their faith and in their engagement with our churches. I want to talk data for a minute. And I think 2 sides of data. One of the things I often hear is at a Dunham company where I do a lot of work. We work with churches and we also work with a lot of just general nonprofits. But we talk about dirty data. Sometimes we get their data and it's just not clean. We can't use it. What are some just churches that are using your technology well? What are some good best practices, and what are some big mistakes the churches are making when they approach data?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, a database management system or a CHMS, CRM, whatever term you want to use is only as good as the data that you put in, right?
Yes.
So, it's critical to have policies and procedures or even just a subject matter expert on your team who owns that data quality, right? If everybody's putting things in and there's no cleaning or there's no management of it, then that data gets really dirty really fast. You end up with a database with a whole bunch of first names and no last names, right? Or you end up with a database that has no birth dates. And suddenly you realize, hey, I need to send out birthday cards and I missed the opportunity. And so it's about strategically thinking through what are those connection points that I'm going to use my software for. If it's to send out birthday cards so that way you have that connection, then you probably should be collecting birthdays. If it's
Yep.
about making sure that you know people's first name, last name, and title, in many denominations, the title is critically important to
Uh-huh.
individuals. And so making sure that you have that, making sure you understand how all that data is connected, like in a family unit, right?
Yes.
Especially in today's world, it can be a mess from a data perspective because there are mixed families, and when you have mixed
Yes.
families and mixed families of mixed families, the data
Yep.
connections are critically important. And so that's one of the things that we've spent a lot of time on from our people module in Amplify is really making sure that we have the systems in place so that with the appropriate policies, you can go through and kind of manage that. You can set up interactions. You were talking a moment ago about it's not enough just to have the data, and now you need
Yep.
actionable data, right? You need to know that,
Yeah.
hey, this person signed up every week for every semester for a small group and then suddenly didn't. Let me reach out. This person is given
Yeah.
consistently every month for 5 years and suddenly didn't. Let me reach out. Those things.
Yeah.
So leveraging that data to become actionable starts a lot with those policies and procedures. And so whether
Yeah.
that's how you take a visitor card and when you enter
Yep.
that in, or whether that's somebody who's following up with them, meeting them in person, getting to know their name, and then putting in their data, whatever that looks like, we can't excuse the personable aspect of that, right? Somebody who's managing that. From a dirty data perspective, I think the biggest thing that we can do, or any software provider can do, is make sure that those integrations are in place.
Yeah.
When data's
Yes.
coming in from one system, whether it's inside of our environment or whether it's somebody else that we've integrated with, we got to make sure that we have all those algorithms finely tuned so that way that data matches up perfectly and it just
Yes.
works. It's seamless. So
Yes.
that's definitely something that we are highly focused on building out. I think we're actually launching a new algorithm for some donor matching capabilities in the next week.
Yeah.
I got an email this
Nice.
morning and it said, "Hey, when is this coming out?" A customer was asking, and it's exactly
Yeah.
that. Right? It's very important, very valuable for our customers.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I've got one more question that I want to just open it up to you if there's anything else you want to share. But my brother-in-law is a data scientist for Exxon, and he's all about Tableau, data visualization. And I remember one of my first times visiting Life Church in Oklahoma City, and they took me to their big, kind of, I don't know what you call it, but they got this room with all these screens on it, and it has all their data. Or I say their data visualized as to then, and driving a lot of their decision making. And I remember, Bobby Greenwald saying, we believe that data should have a seat at the table in our decision making, and it's not the final decision, but it's part of our decision making. And they prioritize having good data and visualizing it in a way so that their leadership teams can then make effective decisions based on data. I'm curious, what is Ministry Brands? How are you approaching data visualization? And I think it is one of the gaps that pastors have had, because they often will look at a spreadsheet and try to understand, or they'll look at, they'll make guesses. I often hear like, well, I feel like this is what's happening. And it feels like the service is more full, but at the end of the day, we often have that data. We just don't know how to look at it. I guess practically, what are you doing, and what are you maybe envisioning for the future of data visualization to help ministry leaders make better decisions based on their data?
I love it. So I'm going to hit on what we're doing with data real quick. And then I'm going to spend most of the time talking about what we're going to do to enable our pastors to use that data in new ways. Okay.
Love it.
So what we're doing with data is in product management, we should be living and dying by the data. I love talking to customers, and that is data, right? That's data points. But we need more than that. We have 90,000 customers across our portfolio of people using our software on a daily basis. We have millions of users in our software every single day, and not understanding what they're doing is a travesty, right? And so it's one of the things that we started implementing. I think we got it fully installed in Q3 of last year, so about 6 months ago. We're just now starting to get to see really, really good data from it. We've put in what we call a behavioral analytics tool. Okay. We used to have Google Analytics, but this is a much more robust one that gets all of the data about what's being used, what's not, and helps us make decisions. So a couple of interesting things. Number one, what does everybody use in our system? It's the people profiles, right? People go there to find information about people. Not a huge surprise, but it validates. Another thing that we've learned from this is that the second most used functionality is reports. And I'm not talking a little bit most used. Like, there was a huge gap between reports and the next most used feature. And why is that? It's because that's why people go to a database management system in the first place, or CHMS. They want to utilize technology to understand their members, to understand what's going on. And so just like we've done that on our side to say, hey, reports are incredibly valuable, the data visualization is incredibly valuable. Now we're being able to take that insight and go and invest in it. I was actually on a call earlier this week, 3 calls, in fact, earlier this week, strategizing about how we take some of that stuff we talked about with interactions and turn that into actionable data visualizations, right? So how do we, at a member level or a congregant level, help the pastor in real time through even a little bit of AI maybe, or artificial intelligence, help our pastoral staff minister to congregants? And it's not going to do the ministering for them, but what if it could tell them, hey, this static behavior of a congregant has suddenly deviated from the norm, right? They normally do this and they stopped doing this. Well, here's a visualization. Here's somebody you should call it and lean it on. Really important story, just real quick, that a pastor told me the other day. He said, I remember calling up this congregant because he'd stopped giving, and I wanted to understand what was going on. You know, been a very faithful giver for 10 years. When I called him up, I learned that 6 months ago, he had lost his job and he'd lost his wife. And he said, I wish you'd reached out then. I really could have used you. And the pastor, when he was telling me this, said, it's not that I lost out on the donation. I'm not worried about that. I lost out on my primary calling, which is the opportunity to minister my flock, right? And he said, if I had known, the problem was his church had gotten too large and he wasn't able to connect to everybody and know what was going on in everybody's life. And so he said, if I had been able to understand and able to know what was going on from a metrics perspective, I could have reached out sooner and maybe found a way to minister to him in real time. That's our vision. That's our goal, from a data perspective. And Amplify is the start of that. Inside of Amplify, from a really technical, nerdy perspective, we're building a really robust shared data lake with multiple tiers of data that kind of gets pulled in and then gets formulated a little bit through algorithms to be able to then turn out individual member data, subsets of data in kind of cohorts. So you could say, hey, show me everybody from 20 to 30 and how they're behaving in certain ways with us. And then also how to do it across churches and across denominations, not by providing people data, but by being able to show trends. The church down the street is winning with 30 to 40-year-olds. Well, why can't I seem to engage them? Those kind of trends I think are incredibly valuable. So that's where we're going. And the heart of it goes back to that story, which is we wanted to enable that pastoral staff. Again, church ops needs it, sure, but the pastoral staff needs it too. They need to understand what's going on in the lives of their congregants, so that way they can minister in real time. And that's done by understanding actionable analytics and insights that they can then go and take action on. That's where we're going.
I love it. I love it. Very cool. Well, Nathan, it's been so good to get to know you, to catch up on your story, to catch up on Ministry Brands and all that's happening. What else should our listeners know or hear about Ministry Brands that maybe we haven't talked about?
Yeah, I think the important thing is kind of what you've already harped on, which is that piece of innovation. And at the end of the day, innovation can't happen in a silo. Innovation has to happen in partnership with our 90,000 customers. The customers that are using us every day, some of them are winning, some of them are losing. And that's where we want to lean in and partner with everybody in our environment and outside of our environment to understand, as we expand outside of church shops and focus more in on tools for pastoral staff, tools for congregants, mobile data visualization, etc. How can we deliver the most value as quickly as possible, right?
Yes.
And that's what we're kind of the heartbeat of who we are has become. I'd say that the last thing that I'll mention is kind of behind the scenes. And you mentioned this a little bit, but it's great to work with business people in business, right?
Yes.
But in the church business world, right, in the church software world, it's even better to work with people who have a passion for church. And I'd say that's the power of Ministry Brands. We have 750 associates who the more that I lean in and the more that I meet them, they are passionate about their local churches. They are passionate about, whether it's in the Catholic space, their parishes, whether it's in the Protestant space, whether it's in some other denominational space. They are passionate about how what we do on a daily basis impacts ministry. And that's what we want to do. That's how we want to exist.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. I love that. Love hearing about that. How can people that are interested in learning more about Amplify or connecting with maybe you directly, following you on social media, where should they go from here?
Absolutely. So we just recently launched a podcast. You'll be happy to know. We'll have to have you come over.
Nice.
It's called
Nice.
Church Leadership Lab. You can find it on any of the podcast places. You can go to YouTube,
Nice.
type that in, Church Leadership Lab. Some phenomenal content. It's just started coming out, but really excited about the trajectory there. So definitely check that out. I'm on LinkedIn as Nathan James. You guys can find me. Go to the Ministry Brands page or go to my page. Love direct messages. Love to talk to people directly. More than happy to set up phone calls or chats and just get to know people. So if you want to reach out, definitely feel free. Would love that.
Awesome. Well, we will leave a link to both the podcast and to Nathan's LinkedIn account on Social Media Church website. So you go to socialmedia.church and we will have a link to all of that and all the things that we've talked about in this episode of the podcast. So Nathan, thank you for joining us. Thank you for leading the way and serving churches well. We can't wait. We'll have to have you on regularly to get updates on all that's happening in the world of Ministry Brands. I love having a face to Ministry Brands and really be able to have this conversation. I appreciate you doing it so transparently. And yeah, I'm just really excited to see what comes of all of this innovation. And the future is bright, and I'm so encouraged out of this conversation. So thanks, everyone, for listening. We will talk to you again on the next episode.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.